Majority Leader, Honorable Peter Patterson, the Chairman House Committee on Media and Publicity, Honorable Benjamin Kalu, who is on his way here, the Director General of News, Professor Suliaman Abubakar, the country representative, Conrad Denua Steve Tong, Nigeria, Maria Peran, awardees here present, honorable colleagues in the House of Reps Press Corps, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great honor to welcome everyone to this yet another great occasion to mark this year's 2022 Press Corps. This day for us is very important as other activities have been lined up to mark the week. The theme for this year's event is apt, owing to the 2023 general elections that will birth a new assembly. Since the return of democracy in 1999, the country has continuously witnessed a high turnover of legislators every election cycle. As journalists covering the National Assembly, we are set to witness highest turnover of lawmakers in the 2023 election, and this is a cause to worry about. Obviously, about 70 to 80% of lawmakers will not make it back to both the federal and state houses of assembly, which is quite worrisome, and the adverse effect resulting to loss of institutional memories, experience, and relegation of competency to the background, among other issues. As we all know, democracy cannot exist without the legislature, hence the need for a critical stakeholders summit on the adverse effect of high turnover of lawmakers, the good and the bad. For us in the Press Corps, we have been covering the Parliament for decades and will continue to analyze, educate the public on its advantages and disadvantages. While we appreciate the Speaker of the 9th House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila CFR, on his role in stabilizing the 9th House, we will not forget NRGF reforms like the Police Act, the Petroleum Industry Act, among others, that saw the light of the day under his able leadership. In the course of our reportage, we have watched with keen interest individuals who have contributed their quota in promoting the legislative system and chose to honor them today. These individuals have distinguished themselves in building and sustaining democracy in their own way. The House of Representatives Press Corps will continue to work towards promoting good governance. Be objective, we will be balanced and fair in reporting parliamentary activities as we look forward to the 2023 general elections. As we all know, the Green Sentinel, a publication of the Press Corps, which is in its 2nd edition, will also serve as a quarterly gazette to keep stock of activities in the Green Chamber. I appeal to our honorable lawmakers and standing as well as ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives to continue to patronize us. We know now, because of the campaigns and election ongoing, it might be as if we're not having so many of them, but we are hopeful that by the time we have the 10th National Assembly or House of Reps come into effect, we'll have more lawmakers patronizing the Green Sentinel because it has come to stay. Once again, I want to say thank you to the editorial team of the first ever published magazine in the history of the National Assembly Press Corps. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it. Once again, I want to say congratulations to our awardees and a big thank you to Mr. Speaker, your leadership and committee chairman for all you have done for the Corps. I must acknowledge the role of the House bureaucracy led by Dr. Yahaya Danzaria, the Clerk of the House of Representatives. Your commitment and appreciation to the House Press Corps cannot be forgotten in the jiffy, and we hope to look for more. I appreciate the Director General of News and the Institute for being our good partners. Most especially, I thank my honorable colleagues for their support. I welcome all of you to this occasion. God bless the House of Representatives Press Corps. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was no cloud. Can we do it better?
Is present here today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, I want to thank the Press Corps, House of Representatives, for inviting us to this very important event today and also for honoring CAS. We appreciate the great relationship that we have built in the past years. Now, many of you know that CAS has been active in Nigeria for more than 20 years now. The focus of our work lies on the promotion of democracy, good governance, and the rule of law. To this end, we have been supporting the media in Nigeria as a vital and crucial part of a democratic country. It is great to see the progress taking place in the country and that has been achieved in these last years. You have some great media outlets within the country. But of course, challenges remain. Now, training the press corps, which we have done, both of the Senate and the House of Representatives, is vital when endeavoring to strengthen good and democratic governance. With Nigeria in its third decade of democratic consolidation and many complex conflicts threatening to rupture the country, the Nigerian media, and especially the press corps, is one of the most powerful institutions in the country. Its influence and reach, Its influence and reach should not be underestimated. Now, legislature reporting, an essential part of mass media function, is a significant feature of a parliamentary democracy. The ideal behind it is that both the people and the government benefit from this legislature reporting. And this specific task of reporting involves multiple activities of the legislature, including the very complex process of lawmaking, as well as debates on subjects of public interest. Against this backdrop, we commend the work of the press corps. It is very relevant. Reporting the proceedings of the legislature is a highly responsible job that does not come easy and that requires requisite ability and maturity to take on this task. Now, CAS has offered and will continue to offer trainings to the press corps because of a simple logic. The starting point to take on the tasks I just described must be to understand not only the proceedings and processes of legislature, but also the principles and challenges of governance in Nigeria, as well as the function of legislative oversight. With the general elections ahead and faced with fake news and the growing importance of social media of public opinions, this shows how relevant it is to continuously train those that are charged with legislative reporting. When considering the high turnover that can be expected, we just heard the very huge number, this is even more crucial. Now, let me thank you again for this good partnership and assure the press corps of our continuous partnership in the future. Without a functioning media coverage and without functioning legislative reporting within the National Assembly as well as outside of it, the democracy is weaker. Now, let's keep on working together to strengthen democracy in this beautiful country. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I am particularly delighted to be in your midst to share thoughts on the issues that affect our democracy and legislature. I understand that the Press Week is a routine event of the House Press Corps. In my estimation, this event also serves as a period in which you pause to review your past activities and think of new ways to discharge your functions for better results. Your theme for this year, high turnover of lawmakers, negative impact and way forward, is very apt and timely, especially with another general election around the corner. The issue of high turnover of lawmakers lends its negative impact on performance of the legislature. It includes erosion of legislative stability and institutional memory to an increase in the budget for capacity building of new legislators, manpower and competence. It takes a while for a newly elected legislator to master the art and act of lawmaking, oversight and representation, which are core responsibilities integrated therein. Collectively, these factors have contributed to weakening the legislature in the current democratic order, where the legislature is the supreme organ. Unlike the executive that can only serve for a maximum of 2 terms in most parts of the world, there is no term limit for the members of the legislative houses world over. Hence, in the United States of America, senators like Daniel K. and Robert C. Byrd served 49 and 51 years, respectively. However, such ranking legislators are, to say the least, rare in the National Assembly because democracy re-emerged in 1999. The National Assembly, being the supreme institution of Nigeria's democracy, needs more time to produce long-serving legislators. This will help strengthen its capacity in the legislative affairs, institutional memory, and advance the development of its bureaucracy. It will also help position the legislature to play its role more effectively as the bastion and ombudsman of Nigeria's emerging constitutional democracy. That said, I want to state at this juncture that you have demonstrated capacity as members of the Fourth Estate. May I also state that you have conducted yourselves as gentlemen of the press and have also exercised your role in such a worthy manner that portrays you all as professionals in the game. The cutting-edge expertise you bring to your reportage of events in the House of Reps and the entire National Assembly, in addition to the discharge of your watchdog role in all aspects of governance, is commendable. When we listen to only reply, we make mistakes. When the news is when we describe news as breaking, it appears that that news is still breaking. It's not conclusive. So we leave it as it is. This brings me to the story of a farmer, an old farmer, and a drugs officer. One time, a drugs officer passed by a farmland and decided to check it by way of routine exercise. He entered the farm and asked the farmer that he wants to check the farm for illegal drugs, illegal weeds farming. The farmer said, okay, I agree, but don't go to that side. The drugs officer quickly brought out his ID card and said, look, my friend, this ID card permits me to enter everywhere in this farm. I have the authority to check every side, every corner, every part of the farm. He said, okay, go ahead. He continued his work. After for like 5 minutes, he saw the drugs officer running out of the farm through the gate. When he looked, he saw some wild bees pursuing him. He now went after the drugs officer and said, please wait, why don't you show them your ID card? So ladies and gentlemen, sometimes when we listen, we shall listen to understand, not just to reply. At this juncture, let me deeply appreciate you for the award, which I must say will inspire me to do more in the coming months and years ahead. Permit me to urge you to do more to protect the sanctity of your democracy and legislature so as to bring about transparency and accountability in governance. Thank you and God bless.
Of the House of Representatives Press Corps, for the distinguished award to be conferred on me today, according to you, as the champion of legislative development and democratic growth in Nigeria. I believe this award is a recognition of the modest contributions that NAIRS has made toward legislative development and deepening democratic tenets under my leadership. I wish to, however, state that these contributions wouldn't have been possible if not for the support of the leadership of the National Assembly under the indefatigable leadership of the President of the Senate, His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Ahmad Lawal, PhD, JCON, and Right Honorable Speaker Fembajabia Mela, CFR. I wish to assure all stakeholders that NAIRS, as a center of excellence in legislative practice and development, will continue to be at the vanguard of providing a qualitative and responsive legislative and democratic capacity building that will help in promoting accountability and good governance for the sustainable development of Nigeria. Secondly, I wish to commend the organizers of this program for inviting me as a guest lecturer to deliver a paper on this topical issue of high turnover of the lawmakers, impact, and the way forward. What you gave me was negative, but I tried to change it to impact and the way forward. Because when you talk of negative, you have taken the position already. When you talk of impact, it's now left for the guest lecturer to analyze whether the impact is positive or negative. Because if we have high turnover, and we discover the high turnover is on account of non-performance, then it's not negative, it's positive. So it depends on, so let's look at the hypothesis, let's look at the findings, and then let's draw a conclusion before we can now say whether it's negative or positive. This topic is not only timely, but appropriate, considering the strategic role that the legislature plays in ensuring the judicious use of the abundant human and material resources of Nigeria in providing dividends of democracy to our citizens. Indeed, this topic has been the focus of scholars and practitioners in the field of legislative studies. You will recall that at our just concluded convocation ceremony, Right Honorable Speaker Dimeji Bankole delivered a similar paper for the Uniben NACE postgraduate and HND program. In fact, the leadership of National Assembly has made similar remarks on different occasions. They have drawn the attention of the public to the scourge that has bedeviled the legislature in the course of its institutional development and the danger therein. In spite of its critical importance as the closest arm of government to the people, performing the core function of oversight, representation, and other constituency-related services, the legislative arm has recorded significant setback in its development. It is in view of the foregoing that I consider today's lecture as a very, very relevant contribution to the effort aimed at the position in the legislature in Nigeria to provide the much-needed checks and balances for effective governance and balancing in Nigeria. The focus of the paper, therefore, shall be to provide some useful background to legislative development in Nigeria, examine the trend in the turnover rate of legislatures since the advent of the current democratic experiment 23 years ago, identify the causes and impacts of the high turnover rate of the legislatures, and propose solutions to stem this dangerous tide. Background to legislative development in Nigeria. The importance of the legislature to the sustainable development of any nation cannot be overemphasized. Indeed, both scholars and practitioners in the field of legislative and democratic studies agreed on the nexus between legislative effectiveness and national development. Let me just make a summary of this. Without the legislature, there is no democracy. What epitomizes democracy in any society is the legislature. When they take over a government, they abolish or suspend the legislature, they allow the judiciary and the executive to remain. So the only organ of government that shows that you have a democracy in place in any clime is the legislature. So when you talk of government of the people, by the people, and for the people, the only chamber, body, organ, institution that suggests that democracy exists is the legislature. Hate them, like them, love them, call them any names, without them there's no democracy. So, whatever we want to do in terms of criticism should all be at how do we better legislature, not how to abolish that body, not how to, criminalize the legislature in the country. So, it's key and it's very important. And what they have done so far since 1960 is there for us to know. Since 1999, our practice of uninterrupted democracy, the stability and the progress of the legislature has been hampered. High rates of legislative attrition, the continuous replacement of significant members of the legislature after each general election cycle has serious implications for its ability to perform the role it's supposed to perform effectively. This has led to several capacity gaps in our legislative practice and procedure at both the state and national level. For instance, since 1999, both chambers of the National Assembly, less than 5% of the lawmakers have been in the legislature since the return to civil rule in 1999, as compared to other democracies such as United States, UK, and some other advanced democracies in the world. While a few members have crossed over from the House to the Senate, Only a handful of them can boast of having served up to 4 times in the Alo chambers. Democracy so place live members or membership to the parliament. For the executive, either as governor or president, you can only spend 2 times. For the judiciary, yes, that one is not by political appointment. But the legislature is the only one that by election you can be there till eternity as long as your people want you. That is why in advanced democracy in the US, you see a senator that has been there for 45 years, 50 years. As people want you, you can keep on re-electing you. It's confirmed on the legislature, live membership of the chamber. While the system, the principle, allow them to stay till eternity, till they die, as long as they be re-elected. What we observe in Nigeria is to the opposite. And that is why we say, when we look at the House of Assembly, sorry, House of Representatives and Senate, hardly could you see a senator or House of Rep member that has spent, 20 years, maybe two in Senate, and probably 10 in out of 360. When you have such high turnover in the legislature, it hampers democracy, it hampers legislative practices, and it affects governance. While a few members have crossed over to the House, to the Senate, only a handful of them can boast of having served up to 4 times in the House chambers. Already, there is a clear indication that the incompetent National Assembly might be worse than the previous ones. When the 9th Assembly was inaugurated, there were about 250 new members against a little over 130 old members which cut across all political parties. Among them, you have APC that has the highest number of new lawmakers, 137, while the PDP was next with 59 members. With over 130 members of the House already out of the contest without a nomination to contest, there are fears that the number of lawmakers that will return may further deplete. This indicates that the number of fresh lawmakers in the coming 10th Assembly House in the year 2023 may be higher than the last Assembly. Already during this primary, now almost 60% of the House members are not coming back. That is the level of primary. We have not gone for election. By the time we go for election, I can bet it. With the new technology, with the new innovation, with the new incentive from the INEC, maybe half of those that have gotten their nomination, maybe half of them will not come back again. So you get a house without high-ranking members. You get the house without inexperienced lawmakers. These has serious implications for Nigerian democracy. The turnover trend in Nigerian legislature. Various studies conducted by NAMES in the past, and the recent one by Right Honorable Oladimeji Bankole, have indicated that the re-elections to the Nigerian legislative houses at both national and state level have been very, very low, leading to a high rate of legislative turnover in the country. For example, out of 109 elected senators in the 6th National Assembly in 2007, 86, that is 79%, were few members, while only 23% were re-elected. This means that 79% of the senators that served in the 5th Assembly were not returned to the 6th Assembly. This trend continued in the 7th Assembly, where only 36% of the 109 senators were returned, while 73 were new members. In the House of Representatives, studies also show that out of the 360 members in the 2011-2015 National Assembly, only 28% were re-elected, while 260 were made of new members. Majority were new members. I will come to the implication, but you can just keep on imagining what that implication means. Which means cars will have a role to play in spending their money on us again. Which means needs have a role to play in spending their money on us again. which means Nigerian government has a role to play in training and retraining most of these new lawmakers. Because lawmaking business is not just like any other business. You can be a professor like me, but you need to learn it. You need to study it. You need to be, taken to the rudiment of lawmaking. It's a specialized enterprise that requires special training. So, if now out of 4 years, we have spent a huge amount of money in sending lawmakers to Abal, to UK, to NIS, to study, to do this and that, while they are getting set to learn and know how lawmaking process and oversight is being done, they are thrown out. So you have to start all over again. It has serious implications. We shall come to that. In the House of Rep, study also show, I think I've gone through this. Now, this trend in legislative attrition did not differ significantly in 2019. And I said 2019 sound very, worse, but what we are going to see in 2023 is going to be worse off. Where about 64 senators and 151 House members were not elected in the current 9th Assembly. The situation is expected to be worse in the 10th Assembly because of the trend already shown during the primary election, in which more than 70% of the legislature failed to secure return ticket during their party primaries in the year 2022. Indeed, out of the 30% that secure party return ticket, many of them may not make it to the 2023 election, further compounding the already worse situation. Consequently, scholars are already predicting that the 10th Assembly might witness the highest rate of turnover since the beginning of the current democratic experiment in the year 1999. That is Suliaman Bankole, that's our position. Besides this deplorable situation at the national level, the rate of turnover at the State House Assembly level is more disturbing, where the rate of attrition in some states has been as high as 98%. Let me emphasize at this juncture that turnover itself is not entirely bad. Some regard turnover after the election as being part of the effort to strengthen the legislature and inject new blood ideas into governance. However, extremely high turnover rates can have long-term effects on institutional building and democratic consolidation. For instance, experience and maturity are important in legislative performance. Before 1999, 2003, 2007, we used to experience brigandage in the House, in the Senate. But I can say boldly that in this 9th Assembly, we have not experienced that. That experience, that maturity. When you are bringing in a new set of lawmakers who have not been, availed this opportunity of training and experience and maturity, perhaps the brigandage that we have done with in some years past will return back to our system. For instance, experience and maturity are important in legislative performance as underscored by the fact that the framer of our Constitution did not give limit to the numbers of time a legislature can be elected, whereas the executive arm has a maximum time limit of 8 years. The need for an experienced and seasoned legislature is a universal desire both in developed and developing nations. This special privilege is an indication that lawmaking is a learning process, and the legislature standing to gain a lot with career-based lawmakers and thus consolidate democratic progress where there is no time limit. Taking advantage of this provision, therefore, many American lawmakers have spent considerable time in the legislature. For example, Robert Bryan has spent 51 years in Senate in the US. Daniel Inouye, 49 years, while both Truman Thurmond and Patrick Leahy have spent 47 years each in the legislative arm of government. This is contrary to the trend that we currently witness in Nigerian National Assembly. What are the causes? The causes, simple. One, selection process. In the course of the primary, a lot of them lost. They lost not because they are not performing. They lost because the godfather doesn't want them. They lost because they don't have enough money. They lost because the government only want them. I think that one is simple. Secondly, election process itself, during the general election, yeah, the electorate may decide to throw them out. They do throw them out when they believe they have not performed or when they believe they've not done enough trickle down. You can perform through passing of bills. You can be eloquent. You can be vibrant. But when you don't do trickle down, you don't give them money to pay their children's school fees, they will throw you out. A lot of factors account for why, an assembly member could lose election. Then voluntary and involuntary reasons such as death, incapacity, retirement, seeking higher offices, I think this one is not as fundamental as the other two reasons. The selection stage involves party primary. I don't need to go into that. We have known the reason. So, for instance, in the just completed party primary in 2022, about 130 members of the House of Reps failed to secure their party ticket to return to the House. As Bankole observed, in Guardian newspaper, as I observed rather, in my interview recently with Guardian newspaper, the number of lawmakers that may not return to Parliament in the year 2023 after general election may be the highest since our return to democratic rule in 1999. For example, in Lagos State, 20 out of 40 lawmakers are not returning. That's under the primary. And you are not sure that when election is being conducted, the general election, that the remaining 20 will still come back. You are not sure. That's why the fact that Lagos State is more of an APC state. Other parties will still get, some trickle of votes that may deplete the rank of those 20. Indeed, records available to names indicate that there are states where only 5 members won primary. So if you have just 5 members that won primary, at the level of primary, by the time the election comes, maybe it should be just 1 or 2. So the 1 or 2, maybe the only one that comes automatically becomes the speaker. If you have to go by ranking. A lot of reasons have been adduced for this alarming trend at the party primary. Prominent among which is the domineering influence of state governance. I think I've said that. The power of the godfather. When you don't have money, you are thrown out. And the so-called delegate list. In some states, maybe just 2 members, the name of delegates will decide the fate of a governor. National Assembly need to look into that seriously. As in Bayelsa State, for instance, maybe 2 or 3 delegate members will come to Abuja to decide who the Nigerian president should be. That is not too good, and it's not a representative democracy. Another potential reason is the desire of the governor to move to the legislature. Most of the governors, when they are done with 8 years, they don't want to retire. They want to move to National Assembly. And to move, therefore, is to force the man there back home by hook or hook. For 2 reasons. The governor wants to come to the Senate. I mean, the governor is representing Ilori as a constituency. That's where he comes from. The senator too is from the same place. And the governor wants to come to Senate. So the best thing the governor would do is to say, I don't come back home. I want to take your position. And since the governor determines who gets what, when, and how, he has the money, he has the power, he decides the delegates. You must respect. As we have it in Akwa Ibom, as we have it in Plateau, these are empirical instances. The governor of Plateau now wants to come to Senate. He has asked the woman there, who is now a senator, I won't mention him, to come to leave the place. The same thing in other states. So they want a kind of replacement. And in Akwa Ibom, the Senate committee person, deputy chairman of state education or so, she was lucky. The governor asked her to come back, but he gave her a replacement, deputy governorship ticket. and is taking over our seats. It's a fundamentalism. There's nothing bad in governors coming to turn National Assembly to extension of the executive. I don't want to be quoted. But what is bad is the machination behind it. And what am I saying? We have seen a situation where governors need to recall by denying a serving a vibrant senator ticket because of ego, because of complex, because they believe, oh, if I'm to go to Senate with Ahmed Lawal, let me use UB now. In the time of Gendam, if I'm to go to Senate with Ahmed Lawal will be a ranking senator. Oh, I will not be deputy chairman, Ahmed Lawal will not be chairman. I will not do that. I better force him back home. I'm giving you an empirical instance. What led to crisis between the current Senate president and the government then was because the government believed this man should, and I can't go to Senate while he serves as chairman and I will be deputy chairman. He's my subject, he's my boy. So because of this ego and complex, however vibrant, good you are, they don't want to see you in the Senate. I'm disturbed and I'm worried that we need to curb the rascality of the executive if actually we want democracy to grow in this country. They determine how we breathe, they determine what we eat, they determine our movement, they determine our progression. Most of the people that are not coming back to Senate and House of Reps today forget about other reasons. It's on account of the executive rascality. And that thing must stop. Henceforth. Indeed, most legislators who failed to secure their party primary ticket for the year 2023 general election blame the outcome of the primary on the small number of delegates that determine the fate of candidates all over the country. For instance, only one delegate per local government determined the fate of the presidential candidate. I think I've said this one in Bayelsa State. In addition, most parties refuse to give return tickets to serving legislature due to rotational arrangement. That one is there, rotational. Yes, it's our turn. But that one too has its own implication. In National Assembly or legislature, we talk about ranking. If you are doing rotation, and your belief about rotation is that that will be when it's a local government A, next election that will be B, your constituency will never produce police officer. Because it's about ranking. When you are not in rankings, except you use the power of Ababio, what Ababio did to coerce PDP, to accede to him the leadership of the minority that time, which is uncommon. Everything about Ababio is uncommon. Except you do that, when you are turning in freshers, new faces, in the name of rotation, your area will never get the best from the legislature. Because the principal officer, to a large extent, determines a lot of things. With due respect to the deputy house leader, if it's not ranking, you don't deputy house leader. It's because it's ranking. If Lawal is not ranking, it will be hard for him to be Senate president. Bukola was able to get it to using the force of executive and some other factors. You must be ranked before you can get to the top. So if you are doing rotational, you can do rotational based on three terms. Okay, this person goes, after spending 3 terms, it cannot move to another constituency. But if you are doing it on one time, you are doing yourself. That needs to be taken note of. Thus, most legislatures could only serve for 1 or 2 terms, even when their performance is considered outstanding, since other communities within the constituency are already on the waiting list to present their own candidate. One thing I did not mention when I was talking about the executive was that even in my own state too, I have a good case. One of the most vibrant senators today in this country is Oludegbe, no doubt about that. But it's not coming back again. Because the government doesn't like his face. When you look at senator that has the highest number of bills, Senator Olurebe is one of them in the Ninth Assembly. But despite that performance, the governor said, I don't like your bill, so he's not going back. And rather than giving to him, the governor gave it to a lesser person. You know, Olurebe is a medical doctor, and he's chairman of the Senate Committee on Health. And now we are going to another person who's an OMD holder because they have money. So we have to look at it critically. Where are we heading to? We are talking of high turnover, and I'm trying to be practical and empirical. I'm not here to speak theory. We discuss what we see, what is ongoing, what is happening. I'm saddened that in my own constituency, for instance, I have a vibrant doctor, senator that has done well, is not coming. And OND holder is coming to replace me. It's sad in terms of contribution to issues. Where would that come from? It's a sad development. We're looking at the impact, the implications of high turnover, and what the outworks the other organ of government is doing to the legislature. The general election stage is another process, and I've discussed that one. That one, when it comes to general election, people will vote you out. And they vote you out not because you have not achieved. They vote you out because you have not dropped something for them. All this one we're talking about, this, where we have to perform, is because if he doesn't have money to drop, they don't want to hear Turinchi. It's not how many times you stood up in Senate that matter to them, but how have you been responding to their demands of their children's school fees? How you have been paying their health bills? Legislatures are not executive. Legislatures are not the custodians of our money. They have to make law. They have to represent. They have to do oversight. But there are a lot of misperception about what they do. Perhaps because they are the closest organ to their constituents. Because of this misperception, therefore, people who read your performance, whether they vote for you, not on account of how many bills you have moved, but how many trickle down you have drawn for them in terms of money. Besides the above, our unabated expectations of constituency, I've said it, make conception about the lawmakers in the provision of necessary abilities and infrastructure. Unlike the advanced democracy like America, where the work of the lawmaker is judged strictly by lawmaking oversight and representation, in Nigeria, other external factors are taken into consideration in assessing the performance and effectiveness of legislature within their constituency. For instance, despite the provision of Chapter 4, Part 2 of the 1999 Constitution that talk about issue of lawmaking for peace and good governance, Nigerians are not about this. They are about gratification. They are not interested in the passage of bills. They are not interested in any oversight function. And they are not interested in anything that will improve the greater part of our national life. What most people want is money. Money to pay school fees of their children. Establish businesses. My wife has opened a shop. I need money to buy things there. That's what they need. If you can't provide that, you're on your own. And money to marry more wives. As obtained in some part of Nigeria, like where I come from. If the lawmakers is not able to deliver on this, no matter how many bills you pass, you are on your own. They will be deemed as failed lawmakers and may therefore not get elected by their constituency. This trend has put tremendous pressure on the work of Nigerian legislature and could distract them from constitutional role. That's why in one of my interviews recently I said, I don't envy the life of a person. Because I don't have the money to give. Because the demand are just too enormous. And if you can't meet up, it can even dent your image and dent the image of your family. Because you cannot meet up. So when you talk about the elected, then you talk about the electorate. When you talk about value system in the leadership, you talk about that of the led. As long as we have this orientation that politicians that are elected must go there and give us money to pocket, give us money to marry more wife, give us money to do sooner of our children, then we can never get it right in this country. That's why I keep on saying, when we talk of corruption at the level of leadership, blame that corruption on the followership. Too much expectation could make leadership to misbehave. Now, if the lawmaker is not able to deliver on this, no matter how many bills they get passed, as I said, you are on your own. The idea of opulence in the lifestyle of lawmakers and the wrong perception of the public that lawmaking body is the surest way to stupendous wealth in Nigeria also threaten the election bid of most legislatures. Besides on this, several people are interested in taking over the job of lawmaker, especially people moving from the executive. I think we have said it. In terms of other general reason for the high turnover rate of the legislature in Nigeria, most will be involuntary, while others have talked about debt, you have talked about incapacitated, you have talked about other reasons. Some may even decide to resign. Now, what are the negative impacts of this? The ability of the legislature to effectively perform its function and uphold the executive to account depend on multiple and interconnected factors such as financial and operational autonomy, the quality of people elected into the legislature, the availability of robust and varied bureaucratic support, stability over a long period of time, and experience acquired while undertaking legislative assignment. These factors are, however, being threatened by the high rate of legislative attrition that has characterized Nigerian democracy since the year 1999. As observed again by scholars, just as myself and Bankole, the high rate of turnover rate means the legislature has been unable to develop its institutional and human capacity. We have said this. When you keep on having this high rate, the institutional capacity, the center has been there. A bill on PIB came, first time, second time, third time. He knows the rudiment, he knows where they are, he knows the stage they are. When it's returned, you know where to start from. You know bis A, bis B that will not pass. You know the one that passed that will not get accepted. So when you now, with those senators or rep members now are now being denied the election, the institutional capacity required of them is lost. The skill is wasted. So one of the major implications of the high turnover is the loss in the institutional memory and the human capacity of Nigerian Parliament. A weak legislature cannot sufficiently hold the executive to account. You just have elected a fresher, and they're now destroying PIB. And somebody was making reference to what contains under Fourth Assembly. He doesn't even know it. He doesn't even know what they're saying. We interact with some of the freshers. I remember one of the staff members that first came, because a fresher from one of the South. And one of my staff walked up to him for intervention. And the lawmaker wrote me, gave me a query. I said, look at this man, he doesn't know his job. If he has done his job, he knows that he doesn't have power to give DG this query. But because he doesn't know it, so he needed to be taught that no, it's not your work, you are not the executive, that he needs the governing council, headed up by the Senate President and Speaker. If you have any issue, refer to them. As simple as that. So human capacity, the institutional memory is a major, deficiency. It's a major problem. When you talk about the implications of the turnover rate in the legislature. Moreover, past studies have indicated that long legislative tenure has been identified as a critical factor for expertise development and other legislative traits, such as past. Look at what obtains in UK, for instance, when you want to, appoint new prime minister. The ease. Look at what obtained in Germany. Look at what obtained in US. They are able to transit modestly with less rancor because they have experienced lawmakers in their chambers. Compare, with due respect, the maturity in some high-ranking members and senators with those pressures in the assembly. Just look at them. Look at the hierarchy senator we have now. Look at our ranking members. Even look at Lawal speaking. Look at Fajabia speaking. Whatever your reservation about them, you know that these are experienced lawmakers. You cannot buy it. And we need such experience for us to move on as a country. The good thing about having experienced legislators is that they can mentor even the new ones in the course of complex legislative work and policies. But when we throw them out, too bad. Whatever anybody will have against the Senate President, the Yoruba North that are bringing the new person, they are lost. Because it's like you are throwing away Senate presidency for a pressure that cannot even be the chair of the committee. Whatever, forget about anything about yes, you have something against SP, that is your own problem. But in terms of loss to that constituency, they are lost. It can never be the same again. Just as I'm at loss too in Kwara, my own sector, so they are lost too in Yobe North. Because we need the experience. If we want to come to the issue of intervention for solar intervention project, it's not what SP we get that the new one we get in terms of consulting project. So they have lost. The man has spent something years, oh, no problem, it's okay. But where you represent, they are the one to feel the pinch. The former lawmaker also noted that another critical effect of turnover is that it can constitute a major source of distraction for legislature, who cognizant of their limited time in the legislature. Loyalty to the money bags, loyalty to the governor is a requirement for continuity in government. When you are not loyal to a governor, however good you are, the governor will get you out. Those elected into the parliament should have knowledge and experience to understand the basic process of lawmaking and be able to engage with policy and other technical issues. While it is possible from time to time for the democratic process to inject new people into the law, into the legislature, non-executive interference and other extraneous factors in the selection of legislative candidates can protect legislative arm and results over the long term and thereby guaranteeing institutional development and capacity building. The legislative arm of government must be strengthened through financial and administrative autonomy. The overdependence of most state House Assembly on funding from the executive makes them susceptible to manipulations and executive control. One of the solutions I prefer from now, before now, was that if you want to get the legislature life out of the executive, it's worse at the state level. The governor determines the principal officer at the state assembly. They determine the lawmaking process. They determine who sits. Even a former governor that just left is determining what is happening in the house. So to get your life out of the executive control, this issue of autonomy for Nigerian legislature must be taken seriously. The senators, our senator, with due respect, our House member, they must not wait till election come or primary come before they allow the executive to put eggs on their head. They should do the right thing. We have been shouting legislative autonomy, but we're not taking it seriously. And the executive has taken advantage of that to determine your life, to determine how you breathe, and to determine your working plan. I think that one needs to be, one of the solutions is on the issue of legislative autonomy. There is also the need for more public education on the democratic process and the role of the legislature at all levels of governance. The misperception that Nigerian legislature, they are the richest, that when you are in parliament, or you are a parliamentarian, you are a senator, you are an house member, you are the one pocketing Nigerian money. I think we need to educate our people on this. We have said this on several occasions. That out of 19 trillion now, budgeted for, am I right, or 20? Only less than 250 billion come to the National Assembly. The remaining 19 trillions is being determined by the executive. And despite that, Nigerian, the public, they are out, to bring down the legislature. They need to commission get part of it. As long as the commission get part of it, one owner senator, 360 house member, about 3,000 aides, the National Assembly staff of almost 5,000. How much is the money compared to 19 trillion that is being determined by the executive? I stand to be corrected. Because I've tasted executive, I was one time a minister. Sincerely, I don't wish to be a senator or house member. Because I know how house members and senators used to come and, beg us to help their people. They don't have money. But the Minister of Works can sit on 1 trillion and determine where that 1 trillion goes to. But Nigeria will not say anything about that one. All our cries is about the Nigerian parliament. We need to educate the public. We need to change that perception that if anybody or any body or organ should be held responsible at all, that organ of government is the executive, not the parliament. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility because the facts are there for you to see. A situation where the electorate expect the legislature to perform the role of the executive, especially in the provisions of infrastructure and facility, they will always subject the lawmaker to wrong indices of performance assessment. How do you expect me to take care of your children? How do I pay for your children's school fees? When I'm not an executive, I don't give projects. I don't give contracts. But there is this perception that the legislature provide facility, infrastructure, that they are world contracts. We need to change that perception. Right, Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency, the Parliament need to strengthen the media wing of National Assembly. I start to be corrected. In the areas of advocacy, the media wing of the National Assembly is not doing much. In terms of orientation, you are lacking, and I say with all sense of responsibility. We do most of the advocacy. We do most of the changing narrative. Your committee is not doing much. And where they're not doing much, let them work with the press corps to strengthen that wing. There's need, therefore, for more public enlightenment and engagement, not only by the government and the agency, but also NGOs, CSO, and even the media. Give the press corps money, and they'll do the work for you, and they will do a better job. The sustained campaign, or this sustained campaign will help to change the democratic culture in the country and change the perception of the electorate of the legislature. Already, NIS is at the vanguard of promoting democratic ethos in Nigeria through various enlightenment programs and collaboration with relevant stakeholders, including the promotions of legislative and democratic education among the youth through the nationwide quiz competition among secondary school in the 36 states of Nigeria and the FCT. By Thursday, we are going to have a grand finale of quiz competition for all Nigerian secondary schools. We started from the states, we are done with the states, we are done with the zonal level. The grand final is taking place here in Abuja, here in these premises, to educate Nigerian students about the parliament. It's a way of changing the perception. It's a way of changing the narrative to say, look, if there's one organ of government that should be taken seriously in this country, that organ of government is legislature. Nigerians need to be educated. And we believe in educating Nigerians, we must start from the base. We have to catch them young. This program will inculcate basic democratic tenets on the youth, even at the formative stage, and this will help them to appreciate our democratic culture better in the future. Another possible intervention to stem the high turnover is legislative action by way of amendment to the Nigerian Constitution. This will be by prescribing more years for the legislature tenure or stem the impulsions of the retired governor. You can come with a law to say if you are a retired governor, you should not come to the house. You can do it. You can say if you are a serving senator, before you can deny a serving senator a return back to senator house, you must allow him to spend at least 2 terms, except for this reason. You have the power to do that. And when you do that at National Assembly level, pass it to the states. Let them model themselves by not, ratifying it. Come on with this kind of legislation. You have the power to do it now. If you are facing any problem today, then blame yourself. Because you have the power to legislate, you have the power to appropriate. The legislature is too important to be the retirement home for governance and other executive power. Most of the government they come to Senate or House. They don't go to House, they go to Senate because they believe House is too small for them. When they go there, except for a few of them, they turn the place to a retirement home. I don't see what a 70-year-old ex-governor is doing in Senate. With all respect, there's time for everything. There's time to worship. When you are 70, go and worship God. Don't come to the governance again. That's the time for you to seek Allah's forgiveness for the sin committed. Politicians, we are sinners. And if God spare our life to a certain time, we have to take our rosary and say, God forgive us. So there's time to learn, there's time to work, there's time to worship. At 70 is the time for me to worship. Another possible intervention to stem the high turnover is by way of amendment. I think I've said that one. So we still need to go back to the drawing board in the area of constitutional amendment. Is there anything we can do through the legislative framework to address all these issues? Is there anything we can do in the area of advocacy to address all these issues? Fundamentally, we experience this on account of an executive complex. The domineering nature of the executive determining what does, who does what, when and how. They want to determine not only those who constitute the executive, but also the legislature. The development is not only anti-democracy, but injurious to development of independent legislature capable of holding the executive to account. There's also the need to raise the educational qualification required to be a member of parliament in Nigeria. Considering the complex nature of issues that the legislature must deal with, ranging from education, health, and social welfare to the environment and climate change, as well as a host of other critical issues, a minimum of a university degree or its equivalent should be the entry qualification to the legislature at both national and state level. I think this fact is very important. The era of saying you must have, the law says you must have school start. In fact, the lawyer said it's not even school start, that you can even have primary school certificate. If you are a primary holder and you want to come to Senate and ask for law, what are you coming to do? They discuss climate change. You don't have an idea. They discuss global warming. You don't have the idea. It is high time we close our eyes. Let us raise the banner. If you don't have degree or its equivalent, don't come to the parliament. You can have OND, school start, go to the executive. But when it comes to parliament, you don't come because it's a serious business. Parliamentary business is a serious business. It's not for all comers. The Parliament, National Assembly members, the single member of National Assembly and senators. The amendment is still on, it's not over yet. I know the other sentiment setting when it comes to the issue of qualification and requirement. But there's no part of this country today that doesn't have degree holders, either HND, NC, or PSC, or above. Let us raise the banner. If in our institute we are facing problems, a senator wants to apply for masters in nails and is having just 4 credits and is begging the DGNs to waive it. I can't waive it. A senator wants to go for Harvard, and Harvard requires that you have to submit CV. And when they do that CV, they say it's not qualified. It's degrading. Let us raise the banner, for God's sake. These things are not palatable to your ear, but this is the truth. And we must face the truth. There is a need to raise the educational bar for the legislature too, although more than 95% of the senators have qualification higher than the minimum required in the Senate Assembly. Same for the House, but the case of most state assembly is still very low with those possessing qualification below 1st degree. There is also the need to de-emphasize money politics. Am I safe? Am I protected? Politics should be about service to the country and not the short route to accumulating personal wealth. Until the public perceive legislation as serving the interests of the public and not as means of primitive accumulation of wealth, the fierce competition to replace the legislature at every turn of general election will continue unabated. The legislature has a major role to stem corruption in Nigeria, thereby helping to promote accountability and good governance that deliver maximum democratic debate to the vast majority of Nigerian citizens. In conclusion, it is obvious, therefore, from the above, that one of the major challenges threatening the Nigerian democracy and the situation of the legislature in Nigeria following the return to civilian rule is the high rate of turnover of the legislatures. This turnover results in the erosion and weakening of institutional memory, slow rate of membership maturity, incompetence of the legislature, and general legislative development. Only a few of 109 senators and 360 members of the House get re-elected after serving 1 or 2 terms. It is therefore the responsibility of all stakeholders in Nigerian democratic structure, including the media, to ensure that this ugly trend is reversed in order to ensure high quality of leadership that can steer the affairs of our various legislative houses to ensure peace, progress, and prosperity of the nation at large. Distinguished Senator, Right Honorable Speaker, gentlemen of the press, thank you for listening and for giving about 1 million compliments.
Thank you, Rob. The fact that one we have said, and that's remain a position, is the only legislation that has a longer lifespan. Executive, the highest you can go is just.
Okay. Executive, the highest you can go is 2 times, 8 years. But for the legislature, you can be there as long as your constituents want you to be there through election. And we are saying for the good of our democracy, the more mature, experienced parliamentarian we have, the better for our democracy. Either we like it or not. And I'll give you a good example that one of the most experienced performing speakers in this country is the current Speaker of the House. No doubt about that. Because he has been there for the past 2003, maybe 20 years, SYMFONI, Senate President. You may have reservation for them, but in terms of steering the ship of the House and the Senate, you could see that experience to bear what they are doing. So where a senator or House member has been there for years, and the concept wouldn't want them to be there, is for them to do the needful. They couldn't do the needful again because of the overreaching executive power that want to, get them in by crook or hooks. And that is why I said something must be done to limit the power of the governors and the owners to checkmate these excesses within the doctrine of check and balances is for Nigeria National Assembly to amend the constitutions. Amend it in a way that will reduce the power of the governors and give some balance in terms of equilibrium to both the judiciary and the legislature. It's very clear. We need experienced parliaments. We need experienced parliamentarians. In advanced democracy, that is how it works. Anything short of that will not help us. But where you see a non-performing parliamentarian, it's up to the electorates to decide, not to one money bag or one governor. So the intervention, the meddling of the executive, therefore, is what is the problem here. And we are saying, with all sense of responsibility, that meddling by the executive needs to be checkmated now. And we can do that through amendment to the Constitution, through sensitizing the Nigerian public, and through a lot of advocacy, which I believe must be the responsibility of both the House Media Committee, the CSO, and the press corps and Nigerian media as a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me at this point in time invite the spokesperson of the House podium for his goodwill
to give this very short reminder. I want to appreciate the press corps for the job you have done so far for the people of this country. At the time we arrived, the 9th Assembly, you played a major role in interpreting our legislative agenda and what we set out to do. You tried so much in making sure that the rancor and all the misunderstanding, misrepresentation that surrounds the activities of the legislature, the previous assemblies, were reduced in this 9th Assembly. Truth be told, the image of the 9th Assembly did not get this better without your contribution. You did not do this by feeding Nigerians with lies. You did this by showcasing the activities of the House of Representatives positively, although criticizing where constructive, where needed. And we appreciate every amount of criticisms that came from you as an independent body that is there to oversight us who are currently busy oversighting other arms of government. Your activities have given us that consciousness to be very careful in how our activities are conducted. We appreciate your presence in all our activities, from plenary sections to oversight function, and also in our constituencies. Having said that, the job is still not complete. I walk in reading through the lecture delivered by the erudite scholar, the DG of News. And the few pages I glanced through actually was a frank discussion of the issue. Frank, transparent discussion, honest discussion. And I appreciate you, sir, for going into detail, backing it up with statistics, and telling the truth as it is. But for us to strengthen this arm of government, which most people in Nigeria have not gotten used to, considering our background, where we are come from, military dispensation, and how the executive and the judiciary were prominent arms of government. Many have not come to embrace the relevance, the understanding of what actually the core functions of the legislature is. Do we blend them? No, it will take a while. It's the impact of our history that is playing out. That is why your role in educating and changing the orientation of Nigerians becomes very fundamental. If you leave us to do it alone, I can assure you to be as if we are sounding our own, blowing our own trumpet. But if you join us to educate Nigerians on what the core functions of the legislature is, the confidence level of Nigerians in our democracy will be increased, knowing fully well that the legislature is the fulcrum of our democracy, without which democracy will not be able to stand. So we are relevant, and that makes you very relevant as the press corps of the arm of government that is very key to the advancement of our democracy. But in doing your job, I must say that there is a contribution that you have to make in making sure that this complaint that is being discussed today, where members, we have a high level of them not coming back to the House. For us to reduce that, beyond all that have been expressed by the lecturer, is the fact that we owe Nigerians the role of showcasing the performance of the efficient legislators. Some of them are working, but their work is not being seen out there. Some of them are not showcasing well through the media the activities of their representation. That is where the House should partner more with you in the constituency news, in the activities of individuals, their participation at the committee level, their participation at the oversight function, and all the rest of them. It is important that the members of their constituency, the constituents, get to know the active participation of these ones beyond the plenary. I can assure you most of them are judged by how they stood up to speak during plenary or how they didn't speak. But the work of a parliamentarian goes beyond the plenary. The backbone of the legislature is in the committee work. Most of the people you don't see standing up to address plenary are very active at the committee level. But who is gathering the statistics of the participation of these members of the parliament at the committee level? I can assure you that today we don't have that details. We don't have sufficient details. You will click and you will see that this member is scoring 20% or 30% in committee functions or oversight function. We need to showcase, because in doing that, it's not just the member that you are promoting our democracy. You're raising the confidence of the people in them, so that when they go to campaign or when they stand for election, there will be things that will be backing them up as per the resources or the tools with which they can campaign. And because most of these members are not well groomed with regards to showcasing the activities to the satisfaction of their constituents, they end up being, seen as those who are not performing. That is the truth. I can assure you most members don't know how to go about using the social media to showcase their work. But in the federal constituency where I come from, highly educated people, if you check online, you will see that we are making sure that every piece of information that has to do with my representation and that of the federal constituency is online. We try to push as much as possible. So you have a role to play with regards to that. Let me also say this in general. As the election is approaching, there is a demand on the media to make sure that you stand beside campaign that is based on issues. There is a mandate, there is a demand, there is an expectation that you stand beside the campaign that is based on issues. I've advocated for this time and time again, and this offers another platform to remind you that the voting pattern of Nigerians should not be on the size and how big the size of the shoulders of a candidate is, but in what the candidate has done before, what he is doing now, what he is coming to do in the future, what is pledging to do in the future. Let the media spend more time in pushing forward issues in the campaign of candidates across the country. Secondly, the Electoral Act is not well known. The details of the Electoral Act is not well known to the people of Nigeria. We have passed it into law, but if you ask your people from your various areas where you come from, how much of it they understand, I can assure you there is a little understanding of the Electoral Act and the demand. I'll give you an example. Today, some of my field workers who are hired to work with me in the campaign called me and they brought a bill that I know that if I go in with that bill, it will be shooting beyond the limit of the Electoral Act. And I told them outrightly, no, we cannot do this. They say, why? I said, because there is a law now that has to do with how much your budget for the campaign, for the election. They didn't know, but they are advanced politicians. They've been doing it for years. And they are used to the old system. There is a demand on the media to pick up the topical issues that is found in our Electoral Act and begin to, one after the other, let Nigerians, as it concerns them, know the details of our Electoral Act. That is very important, so that people will not be misunderstood, and even the politicians will not, commit offenses against the Electoral Act. I can also assure you that most politicians who are standing for this election, most of them don't understand the details of the Electoral Act. And it is the media that will take it to the next level. And I call on the Ministry of Information, I call on also the National Orientation Agency, that there is a task before us. The Electoral Act that we'll be asking for is here, but many people don't know the true breakdown of what it entails. Let us all, and all the stakeholders in the media space, stand up and begin to educate between now and December and February. Educate Nigerians on the details of the Electoral Act so that the compliance will help us advance our democracy as intended when we drafted this Electoral Act, to go from where it is at the moment to where it ought to be. Once again, I thank you, and I want to let you know that this happened to be the last week, the last press corps week that will be standing as the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, and also your administration as the leader of the press corps. I don't think we're going to have another press corps week before the 9th, the 10th Assembly comes. And I want to use this opportunity to commend you for the work we have done. I will keep commending you. And I pray that we'll see you in 10th Assembly, but not as your spokesperson, probably as another role for the honorable. Thank you, and God bless you.
With no particular have the clerk of the House of Representatives, who is going to receive the award of the most innovative clerk of the House of Representatives. We also have the Director General of Meals, Professor Abubakar Suliaman. He is going to as the champion of legislative development and democratic growth. And our friends, Conrad Adenoa Shifton, we're also going to give them an award this afternoon, an award of excellence in capacity building. To our fellows here in the House of Representatives, people that we work with day in, day out at the committee level, we have Hajia Laurent Mohammed Idris. She is the most outstanding female clerk House of Representatives. We have Barrister Oscar Koro, most resourceful and most committee clerk. There is also Barrister Lol Mohammed. The Clerk Ecological Fund is going to receive an award of most media-friendly clerk. And we have our colleague, our friend, Larry Lasisi. The Special Advisor to the Right Honorable Speaker on Media and Publicity is going to be awarded this afternoon as the most outstanding spokesperson to the Speaker. I'll hand over the mic to my colleague.
Thank you. My dear colleagues, the DG of NILS, the representative of Adeno Stifton, other invited guests, members of the press corps, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very glad to be here once again, to attend your program this afternoon. Mr. Speaker actually would have loved to be here, but as you all know, is currently, engaged in a very serious national assignment. And so he has asked that I represent him and present his very brief remarks. To start with, I'm sure you all know that Mr. Speaker is a friend of the press. He has demonstrated this in every aspect of his services in this Ninth Assembly. So the message is from your friend and your brother, the Speaker of the people. Mr. Speaker appreciates the press corps as a whole, and in particular, your present leadership for the role that you have been playing from the beginning of this Ninth Assembly. We surely appreciate your commitment and support for the Ninth Assembly agenda, which you have made very popular by your very objective and timely reportage of the activities of the House of Representatives. We want to assure you that this House will continue to do the best to support the Nigerian people, to serve the Nigerian people, to make and support laws that will continue to protect the interests of Nigerians and provide for Nigerians the kind of leadership that is required. I'm sure you saw what happened during the ASU crisis, the role played by the Speaker of the people. Those are the kind of things that this assembly, pays so much attention to and emphasize so much to ensure that at every point in time when intervention is needed, we are there for the people. And we cannot do this, of course, without your continuous support. You have been there for us, and you have supported us in every way. We appreciate this,
And we wish to continue to partner with you in every way that we can also do this, so that you can also do your job, more efficiently. The professor, our very cerebral and experienced professor, who has seen it all, both in the executive arm of government as well as now in the legislative arm of government, because he is the DG of NILS, the academic, aspect of the National Assembly. He has done so well, and I wasn't surprised, therefore, when he made his presentation and touched on virtually every aspect of the issues at stake. But the one that shocked me is the courage, the tenacity with which he presented the issues without fear, of favor. He has analyzed the issues very thoroughly and went ahead to make recommendations on how to address those issues. I'm not going to talk about the issues per se, but just to mention a few. But my interest here is for you to follow up with all the recommendations, give adequate publicity to those recommendations. The legislature, as a bastion of democracy, can do their job very well only when you have a stock of experienced and competent human beings. The frequent turnover is a serious problem. Serious in the sense that the older, the better. The more experienced, the better legislature. The best legislators are legislators who have seen it in every angle, from every angle. But you cannot come in and do one term and then you say you have seen. How much have you seen actually? How much will you know in National Assembly within 4 years space? He did say that when there is military rule, you have the executive, you have the judiciary, but the only one that is missing is always the legislature. And so, now that we are lucky to have democracy, the best that we can do to ensure that we have an efficient, legislative arm is to maintain and support and sustain the experience already acquired by those who, have been in service for quite some time. That is not a recommendation for service in perpetuity. What it means is that for a reasonable length of time, let us have these people come over again to add to what is already, on ground, and to also, rely on their experience and the competencies acquired from previous services to better the lot of Nigerian people through lawmaking, through oversight, and all whatnot. Having said that, I want to thank you for always being there for us and for always doing your best to report what is happening in National Assembly. It is important that the misconceptions about the role of legislators, most of which were mentioned by the professor, is properly dwelt on by the press. I would suggest that you take them one after the other and begin to educate Nigerians. When you talk about executive rascality, I'm not sure that a lot of people actually know what that means. It's a very serious issue in this country. We have a situation in which governors want to do everything in this country, dictate everything in this country. But it's not in the interest of Nigerian people. It is not in the interest of democracy. When a governor sits down and says XYZ person must not come back, why? You're not looking at the experience, you're not looking at the competencies. It is not about inability to perform, but probably because the face is not fine enough, or he has not done your wish as an individual. It is completely wrong. The same governors who want to choose ministers for the president, they want to tell a local government chairman how to spend their money. In short, their monies are paid into a joint account. Local government funds are paid into joint account with the governors. In most cases, they get documents, they ask them to get documents retiring the funds, even before they give them a proportion of it. If we have a set of people who are too powerful for the normal operation of democracy, this is the kind of situation that we see or experience. A lot of people are actually not coming back. The turnover of legislators is majorly due to the rules of governors. He wasn't wrong when he said so. And I'm here to affirm it also, because we have seen it, we're experiencing it. And except to take this information, this message to them, they might not know that Nigerians are watching them. It is very important, and I want to urge you that, as usual, you have always helped to make popular this kind of recommendations. But this one is particularly very key at this point in time. I'm urging you, therefore, to look at the entire presentation, particularly the recommendations, and see how this can be made public for Nigerian people to know the importance of longevity in legislature and the experience that comes with it, and also the dividends of democracy that experienced legislators are able to bring to the people. On that note, I want to thank you and welcome you all once again to National Assembly. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you. Thank you so very much, sir. The work is not done yet. The job is not done yet. You still will do us a favor. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the high point.
I think my heart is bursting with joy. I didn't know that somebody realized that I have done a lot to the House of Reps. I'm so grateful. I'm happy that I've been recognized.
What's your advice to the media, journalists in general?
Yeah, I think the advice to the media is to cooperate with the National Assembly to send out the mission and the vision of the National Assembly bureaucracy and even the legislators, so that what the National Assembly is doing is to get across to all the Nigerians to understand what we are doing in the National Assemblies, so that they'll help us in, like you heard the DG said, the DG nails that educate Nigerians on what we are doing, because most of them only read from the pages of social media. They don't even ask questions. They don't come here to, but when you people help us to spread the news, spread the activities of the Assembly, our job becomes easier. Thank you very much.